Tom, for yourself, you've lived in California, you've lived in Florida, and you lived in Texas. We've lived in 3 states together. Every time we move together, right? While we're in Florida and we see what's going on with California with the fires, okay, and they're dealing with the fires. Florida's got the hurricanes to deal with, but regardless, we've been in insurance for a long time. I've been in it for 25 years. Insurance is a topic of discussion both in California and Florida. What's your question for him from somebody that's looking at it from more insurance standpoint for if Byron decides to run as a governor?
Well, first of all, I love what you said, and I love what you laid out. You laid out the middle of the road, the financial hub, housing cost, energy, small nukes. All those things are good. The engine of tomorrow is like the family of today. And one of the things that's hitting the family today is insurance costs in Florida.
Yeah.
Now, I credit what you and the governor did in response to not 1, not 2, but 3 hurricanes in 4 years in your district.
Mm-hmm.
And what you guys did to get the rock bridge, that bridge, it was just a pile of rocks and got the bridge over so you get water and supplies. It was a clinic on just responding to the people. And right now, I feel like there's a hurricane in insurance from an industry that we know pretty well. What do you do to have a similar, because it was such an operational response. It wasn't a political response. There was no grandstanding and speeches. It was get, squat, done. What do you do on insurance? It's such an impact on the family. And then when we're done with that, I'd like to talk about education sometime today. But right now, the cost to the families, they're flocking here to the magnet of Florida because they see the best state in the nation. Everything
Right.
you said, true.
Right.
What can we do from Washington, from the governor's chair, whatever path you take, whether you go Senate or you come back and you go governor, what do we do to help families? Because insurance is huge.
First thing, I think we have to be honest. Insurance costs, in part, are higher because the cost to replace housing is higher. So before you even get into the premiums that people pay, the first thing we got to understand is because of the acceleration of building, the massive inflation the last 4 years, scarcity of material, the regulatory environment around getting said material, it is much more expensive to build a home today than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And the core part of insurance is the replacement cost of the property. So if the house, if the house I own right now, to rebuild it probably would cost me 10 to 15% more than what I paid for it, well, then I can't have an insurance policy written at $300,000 because to replace it costs me X. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first part. Nobody wants to say that directly to people. Because housing values are up and building costs are up, it just dovetails that insurance costs are up. Now, how do we stabilize premiums and try to get them to come down? I think the first thing is you have to deal with the capital basis of the balance sheet of these companies. Are we going to have to make them continue to carry as much capital on their balance sheet like we do? We might need to look at that.
Talking about loss reserve and reinsurance?
Yeah, because if you mess with that a little bit, not too crazy because actuarially it still has to be sound, but you got to try to find some way where you can stabilize the cost side of their reserves in order to actually issue payments in the event of loss. The second big thing that I think people are more frustrated about is the speed upon which they get paid. I think people will make the premium payments, but when something happens, they want the company to step in and do it. Part of that is adjusters situation. We got to figure out, and we tried to do this a couple of years ago with public adjusters, and it's kind of been in the weeds and not really thought through too much and figured out. Well, we got to address that. What the governor and the legislature did in special session 2 years ago now, I want to say, around litigation was the right step. And so the reforms they did, people won't really see the impact of that for, I think, another 2 years, because at the Department of Insurance, there's a 5-year look back on costs in order to set what the new premiums are going to be going forward. So I think in about another year or two, they're going to have to go back and do another look back of the last 5 years to say, okay, now here's what we're going to do. That's like the basis of it. Litigation, loss reserves at the carriers. The other piece is how do we get more carriers into the state? And that's the toughest issue overall, which is why you have to start looking at what are the capital requirements we're going to put on these carriers, because you need more carriers in order to spread that risk out. If you only have a handful of carriers, your premium costs are going to go up, and that's the driver. But if you start to push down on the loan loss, on the reserve costs, and something happens and the carrier goes bankrupt, well, now people who had that carrier are now really out. This is not an easy situation to deal with. I think the number one way the first thing we got to do is make sure that when disaster strikes, we make it as quick as possible for the carriers to step in and try to make people whole. Because then, as long as you're being made whole, then you're getting what you pay for.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, because in California, a lot of insurance companies you're hearing about leaving. The FAIR Act is forcing them to do a certain fee. And they're like, wait a minute, I don't want to insure that community. That's a risky community. How do I stay in? So the way you spread it is by having a lot of guys. Because some guys, even in life insurance, there was companies that their main specialty was cancer. Like, wait, you guys underwrite cancer clients? Yes, we do. That's our specialty.
Or ex-smokers.
Or ex-smokers. You really target that audience? We do.
But they charge for it.
But they charge for it, right?
Wait, to that point, to California, what they did in California to deal with what we're seeing here, where they said we're just going to cap rates, we now see that does not work, because the carriers will just leave.
That's right.
They'll just be like,
that's right.
I'm not writing it.
That's right.
And you can't force them to write insurance. At that point, it's not insurance. At that point, it's basically a public subsidy.
That's right.
And our state in particular.
It's state FEMA at that point.
Yeah.
You just invented
and to be
state
clear,
FEMA on the taxpayer.
And to be clear, the state of Florida kind of already has that. It's called Citizens. Citizens Insurance. The Citizens Insurance Company is a state-run insurance company. The one issue with Citizens is the way it's run, you're supposed to be able to be moved out of the Citizens population if you can find a comparable insurance rate. But it has to be dollar for dollar, which just doesn't exist. So the Citizens population, which is the insurer of last resort, just continues to rise. I think when Governor Scott was governor, I think we got the population in Citizens down to, don't quote me, around 600,000. It's rising again. I don't know if it's over 1 million now, but that's because you had a couple storms come through, premiums are going up, carriers are leaving, et cetera. This is the most complex problem we have, by far.
Well, it'll be a big. I think the 2026 race for the gubernatorial race, I think this will be one of the things that will come up.
Yeah.
And I think if and when you announce, I would have my team feed me. I would get so deep into this, because those coming, you want them to stay. And if guys can't buy a house because premium is so high, so then they're not going to buy. His real estate agent's going to take a hit. Economy takes a hit, and you don't have more inflow of people coming in.
That's right.
And then maybe something happens like California, where a lot of guys from LA were moving to Valencia, to Canyon Country, to Palmdale, going up. So maybe people will be moving up or out, like Fort Lauderdale, going left. Some of that could be happening, even all over the place. Some of the other people, you're in Naples, you're a different part of Florida, but I think this will be one of the main issues. When you go to vtnews.ai, first 100 days, if you can go to first 100 days. By the way, I think we have 89 days left. Can we just do this question real quick here together? I'm going to vote for mine as well, because I think I'm up to date. And my ranking, man, I am way behind with everybody. But what is today's question, Rob, the prediction today?
Will Trump make an in-person appearance at the Super Bowl?
I'll give mine. If Trump's, I'm going to say my answer is a in-person, it's saying.
Yes, he's showing up.
I say yes.
Me too.
Is what I'm saying.
Especially with Chiefs and Mahomes.
And that's for 590 points. Gang, go to vtnews.ai and post your prediction. Here's what we're going to be doing, just so everybody knows, okay? We decided to run a contest behind this, and this will go for the first 100 days. So for the winner at the end, when you win, the end of a PBD podcast, you'll join us for 10, 15 minutes to tell us how you made all these predictions correctly, okay? And the competitors in the top 10 cannot be Valuetainment or Lion Holding employees, okay? If they are, and a lot of them are participating, they're not going to be able to compete in this. It's anybody that's not part of the company that'll compete for this. So if you win, you're the top Nostradamus, you'll be invited to come on the show with us and tell us how you were able to make these predictions. What do you have access to that we don't have? What did you use? Did you use ChatGPT or maybe DeepSeek? What were you using? And then the top 10 predictors with active subscriptions to vtnews.ai, you will be invited on your own. Find a way to come down here. We'll pick a date. You come out with the launch of our cigar lounge that we're doing in our comedy club. You'll be invited. We'll go to the back of the VIP cigar lounge. We'll have a cigar together. We'll spend 2-3 hours together. The whole crew will be there. Conversations, talking, having a good time, having a drink at the new boardroom cigar lounge that we're launching that will be ready, and you will be invited to be a part of that. So again, go compete. There's still 89 days left on this, and there's going to be some accelerator points. So some of the questions will be 5,000 points, 1,000 points, 2,000 points. Put it in your calendar. Every day, 9 a.m., a new predictions being posted. So go to vtnews.ai, first 100 days, claim your predictions, subscribe to the membership. Either one of the subscriptions that we have that's paid, you'll be able to participate in this contest that we're running. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.